Welcome, and you see I've got the Legends of Tomorrow pictures on the set, as well as the wrestling picture on the set, and there's the Arrowverse picture as well. What's missing? Well, there aren't any Baby Yoda signed pictures, and I know his name's Grogu. This week was interesting on The Mandalorian, and I apologize that I'm posting this later than I had intended, but yesterday kind of got away from me for people who watched the live stream last night on the channel. I had intended to do a Mandalorian review after the live stream, but I was busy. So let's go ahead and take a look back. So this week's episode felt really theatrical. And it was called The Tragedy, and as soon as I saw the title, I went, oh no. We've had a nice little run, right? Where there hasn't been any bad stuff going on. Really, in all honesty, it's just been an adventure after an adventure, and there hasn't been any major trials that Mando has had to overcome, right? He's been pretty much untouched along the way. So I'm going to get into spoilers here. So if you haven't watched the episode and you don't like spoilers, for instance, you know, my cat here, maybe she hasn't seen it, she doesn't want to see spoilers, you have the option to go and find something else to do. Did you want to find something? You going to stick around there? You stick around? All right. So, Mandalorian this week was excellent. If you haven't seen it and you don't want to see spoilers, go watch it and come back and watch the rest of this video. That being said, if you're still here, I assume you've watched it, or maybe you don't care, one or the other, but hey, you're here, right? So, welcome. So, as soon as I saw that they were taking Grogu to a temple, I thought, okay, so we're not going to get just a Jedi showing up. And as soon as he sat down and he started to utilize this temple to send energy out into the universe, I thought, so if Moff Gideon intercepts this signal, that's a problem, right? Now, in the meantime, Boba Fett showed up. And as soon as Boba Fett's Slave One was coming down to land, Din Djarin goes, okay, we're in trouble here, and we gotta go. But the kid is still, communicating with the universe, and there's a force field that's drilling Mandalorian every time he gets close, and he still keeps trying because he wants to get the kid out of there. He knows this is a dangerous situation. Now, the fact that Boba Fett ended up being a good guy in this case didn't surprise me at all. Boba Fett as being part of the Imperial machine just doesn't work for me at this stage. And at this stage in his life, too, he's older, clearly wiser from the way they portrayed him, and it was great to watch. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm so happy Boba Fett's in the show. Geeked out major, especially when he got his armor. So he gets his Beskar armor, and man, that was fantastic. And it fit him a heck of a lot better than it fit Timothy Oliphant a few episodes ago when he was wearing it. And I looked at him like, that looks terrible. Boba Fett's armor didn't always look like that, did it? Maybe. And on the proper actor, it looks just fine. So those fight scenes were great. I did get a good chuckle out of how many stormtroopers were in each of those landing craft. It was like a clown car. They just kept pouring stormtroopers after stormtroopers after stormtroopers. And I'm like, seriously, are there 10,000 in there? Because I kind of, in a roundabout way, was hoping an AT-ST would come walking out, which wouldn't have fit in there. And I thought that would have been great. But at some point, of course, Moff Gideon gets tired of screwing around. He fires from space and destroys the ship of Din Djarin, meaning that we're going to get a replacement for him by the end of this season, or he ends up on Slave One. I know the whole way through this series I've thought, at what point does he end up flying a ship that looks a lot like Boba Fett's? This ship he's flying is kind of old looking and not really fun, and not really something that's armored the way that you want a Mandalorian ship to be armored. Now they can do that. Now we can see Mando flying a really cool ship, I would think, for Season 3. But of course, Moff Gideon ends up being ahead of the good guys on this one, sends down they're called Dark Troopers, I guess. They may very well be infused with Force abilities. Whether that's through the blood of Grogu itself, whether it's some kind of midichlorian boost or something like that, We haven't actually heard the word midichlorians. I'm going to be interested to see if we hear it and where we go from there. Because we haven't heard the word midichlorians since Phantom Menace. Not in a movie. We just don't. We don't mention it. We don't want to talk about it. George Lucas tried to explain the Force, and we all went, oh, he explained the Force. It's better when it's just this mystical force field than just this bacterial microorganism thing that ties the whole universe together. That's kind of lame. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this and how they justify the kidnapping again of Grogu. That kid, man. When Moff Gideon walks into the room and Grogu's making the stormtroopers just fall all over the place like Keystone Cops and throwing them into each other and throwing them into the wall and throwing them all over the place. That was great. Now, the kid runs out of energy relatively easy because he's not honed his skill yet and he's still very young. And so he is able to use the Force to throw people around, which is dark side material, right? That's something you would do if you're on the dark side. So for Moff Gideon, he loves that. He loves the idea of this little creature that he calls the Asset becoming dark side. I'm not going to say Sith because Moff Gideon's not Sith. But the idea of him joining the dark side and maybe turning against him. And I thought, are we going to end up with a moment? And I'm thinking like what, Fox and the Hound, where kid runs into, or they run into each other. No, I'm your friend. What are you doing? Bart Simpson with his dog, that kind of thing, where it's oh, don't you recognize me, boy? And then the dog realizes last moment that he doesn't want to rip Bart's throat out. Are we going to end up in a situation where by the time Mando gets to Grogu, that Grogu will have had his mind warped by Moff Gideon to the point where Mando has to really convince this kid, hey, I can help you, I can save you, while the kid is threatening to force choke him out of existence. And so I think I could see something like that going on. I do wonder, though, if there's enough time for that this season. It makes me wonder if the child is going to end up being with Moff Gideon into next season. There's a lot of seasons you could do with this. I'm just throwing that out there. Again, this felt very cinematic. I understand they're setting up something to do with Thrawn, and I know people have said, well, it's probably in another series. Maybe, but you can still introduce Thrawn in this one. Moff Gideon's not flying alone. Imperials are out there. Somebody's in charge of the Imperials. We are in that space where the Imperial army has kind of fallen off, but there's still a lot of ships. There's a lot of men. There's a lot of assets and abilities they have to acquire more assets. They have the capital, and they still have fear on their side too with a lot of these systems. So as we get ready for, you've got to think the First Order will be coming up some point in this series. And as we get ready for that, I do wonder what kind of role Mandalorian's going to play in that. And then, if we get an Ahsoka series with Thrawn, and then what goes on from there. I think this episode this week was fantastic. It was heartbreaking, which is what it was supposed to be. And I saw what was coming too. I thought, okay, they're distracting them, getting them as far away from the target as possible. They destroy Mando's ship because they don't want Mando being able to chase him down. They aren't aware of Boba Fett. They aren't aware of this other, team that's helping out Mando. So they just view it as being Mando. We blow up his ship and he's left there forever. Boba Fett clearly was Slave One. It has cloaking technology, which we know from Empire Strikes Back. Correct? He followed the Millennium Falcon and it had no idea he was there. So he has a radar cloak on that ship, which is useful. And so I would think that Boba Fett now declaring that he is there to help Mandalorian, that should pay off well in this series. It's a great show. I honestly, watching the show, I keep thinking, this is what we wanted in the movies. This is the kind of Star Wars stuff we all were clamoring for when Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith came out. This is what we wanted when J.J. Abrams said he was bringing Star Wars back with Episode 7. We wanted Star Wars. And it's one of those things that you can't really describe. that somebody could show you a movie that has all the same characters and all the same special effects and all these storyline ideas, and you go, that's pretty good. It's not Star Wars. And it's a feeling I've had with all 6 movies since Return of the Jedi, the prequels and the sequels. And the sequels are good. I still think there's a lot of negativity thrown at them because it's cool to hate everything. I think they're better than they get credit for, but they do come across as kind of disjointed, as Bear decides she's going to vote by leaving. But they are kind of disjointed, and that is something that this series is not. This series has a singular vision. This is how it's supposed to work, where every episode leads into the next, and it all makes sense. So I'm a huge fan, and I'm really excited about what the rest of the season's going to bring. Let me know what you guys thought of the tragedy, which I thought that was a very appropriately named episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I'm wearing a Chargers hat because they've been a tragedy today too. So it all works. I could have wore Bengals. I went with this. It's all tragedy. If I cheer for a football team, they're a tragedy. But thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.